I was in the middle of a client presentation in downtown Seattle when my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 3 missed calls from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Then a text that made my blood run cold. Something's happening at your place. You need to come home. Now. I excused myself from the conference room, my hands already shaking as I opened my security app. The studio. My $120,000 music production studio that I'd spent 6 years building, one microphone, one soundboard, one piece of equipment at a time. The app was loading slowly, buffering, and when the live feed finally appeared, I watched my entire world shatter in real time. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My brother, Damien, was inside, swinging a baseball bat. And my sister, Corinne, wasn't stopping him. She was filming it. Her phone held high, capturing every swing, every crash, every moment of destruction like it was content for her Instagram story. I could see her laughing. Actually laughing. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I saved the footage to 3 different cloud accounts, took a screenshot with the timestamp, and calmly walked back into the conference room. I'm sorry, I said to the clients, my voice somehow steady. There's been an emergency. I need to leave. Then I drove home doing exactly the speed limit the entire way, because I knew if I let myself feel anything, I'd drive straight through a red light and never make it there at all. When I pulled into my driveway in the Ravenna neighborhood, I could hear music blasting from inside. Not my music. Not the carefully curated tracks I'd been mixing for the past 3 months. This was deliberately loud, obnoxiously celebratory. Like they were having a party. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was standing on her porch, arms crossed, furious on my behalf. I called the police, she said immediately. They're on their way. I'm so sorry, Natasha. I tried to stop them, but they said you gave them permission. Permission. I felt my jaw tighten. I walked up to my front door, which was slightly ajar, kicked it open the rest of the way, and stepped inside. The studio was on the 2nd floor, converted from what used to be the master bedroom. I'd soundproofed it myself, installed custom acoustic panels, wired everything by hand because I couldn't afford to hire professionals when I first started. Every piece of equipment in that room represented a sacrifice. A skipped vacation. A declined dinner invitation. A weekend spent working 3 freelance gigs instead of resting. I climbed the stairs slowly. The music got louder. I could hear Damien's voice now, shouting over the noise. This is what you get for thinking you're better than us. When I reached the doorway, I stopped. Just stopped and looked. The mixing console, the one I'd saved for 18 months to buy, was smashed. Keys ripped out, faders bent, screen shattered. My microphones, vintage models I'd hunted down at estate sales and audio conventions, were scattered across the floor like broken bones. The acoustic guitar my mentor gave me before she passed away, it was in pieces. Literally split down the middle. Damien saw me first. He froze, bat still in his hands, chest heaving. For a second, just a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Fear, maybe. Or recognition that he'd gone too far. But then Corinne stepped into view, phone still raised, still recording. Oh my God, Tasha. You're home early, she said brightly, like this was a surprise party gone slightly wrong. We were just, redecorating. I looked at her. Really looked at her. My little sister, 24 years old, wearing designer sunglasses indoors, her nails freshly done in some shade of millennial pink that probably cost more than my grocery budget for the month. She smiled at me like we were in on the same joke. Why? I asked quietly. Damien dropped the bat. It clattered against the hardwood floor I'd refinished myself last summer. You want to know why? His voice was louder now, aggressive. Because you've been rubbing this whole setup in our faces for years. Look at me, I'm a producer. Look at me, I'm working with real artists. Look at me, I'm too good for family dinners because I'm always working. I invited you to every single session, I said, my voice still calm, still measured. I asked you both to collaborate. Multiple times. We don't want your charity, Natasha, Corinne snapped, lowering her phone finally. We're sick of you acting like you're some kind of genius while the rest of us are just, what? Background noise in your documentary? Is that what you think this is? I gestured to the destroyed equipment around us. You think I built this to make you feel small? You didn't have to say it, Damien shot back. You just had to exist. Perfect Natasha. The one who got out. The one who made something of herself. The one Mom and Dad never shut up about. And there it was. The truth underneath all the destruction. This wasn't about the studio. This was about every Christmas dinner where our parents asked what I was working on. Every family gathering where I showed up late because I was finishing a mix. Every time they felt like they were being compared to me and found lacking, even though I never, not once, made that comparison myself. So you destroyed 6 years of my work, I said slowly, because you're jealous. We're not jealous, Corinne said, but her voice wavered. We're just tired of being invisible. I almost laughed. Almost. Because the irony was so thick I could choke on it. They thought they were invisible. They had no idea what invisible actually felt like. What it felt like to pour everything you have into something, to sacrifice relationships and sleep and sanity, only to have the people who are supposed to love you reduce it to rubble because it made them uncomfortable. The police arrived then. 2 officers, a man and a woman, both looking exhausted before they even climbed the stairs. They took one look at the studio and the woman officer, Officer Ramirez according to her badge, let out a low whistle. Ma'am, is this your property? Yes. And did you give anyone permission to be here today? No. She turned to Damien and Corinne. Did you break in? We have a key, Damien said quickly. She gave it to us years ago. For emergencies. And is this an emergency? Officer Ramirez asked, her tone making it clear she already knew the answer. Neither of them responded. Corinne's phone was still in her hand, and I could see her thumb hovering over the screen, probably debating whether to delete the video. Too late. I'd already watched her upload it. Already saw the caption, when your sister finally gets what she deserves, face with tears of joy, fire #karma is real #sorry not sorry. I'd like to press charges, I said clearly. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, and I have video evidence of the entire incident. Corinne's face went white. Tasha, come on. We're family. No, I said, and my voice didn't shake, didn't waver, didn't break. Family doesn't do this. Family doesn't destroy what you love and laugh about it. You made a choice today. Now I'm making mine. The officers separated us. Took statements. Photographed the damage. I provided the security footage, the neighbor's testimony, screenshots of Corinne's social media post before she could delete it. Professional, methodical, thorough. Because here's what Damien and Corinne didn't know about me, what they'd never bothered to learn: I didn't build this studio on hope and passion alone. I built it on precision. On planning. On understanding that in this industry, in this life, you document everything because trust is a luxury and proof is survival. By the time the police left with my siblings in tow, it was past midnight. Mrs. Chen had made me tea I didn't drink. The insurance adjuster was scheduled for the morning. And I was standing in the ruins of my studio, finally alone, finally able to breathe. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd created 3 years ago. The one labeled, just in case. Because you see, I'd known this was coming. Maybe not the exact destruction, maybe not the baseball bat and the filming, but I'd known that one day, my siblings would try to tear me down. They'd been circling for years, making little comments, planting little seeds of resentment. Testing boundaries. Seeing how far they could push. I'd been preparing for them. The studio they destroyed? It was insured. Heavily insured. More than its actual value, if I'm being honest. I documented every purchase, every receipt, every installation. The equipment they smashed was already a generation old. I'd been planning to upgrade anyway. In fact, I'd already purchased most of the new equipment. It was sitting in a climate-controlled storage unit across town, waiting for the renovation I'd planned to start next month. The studio they destroyed was a decoy. Not intentionally, not at first. But when I started noticing their behavior shifting 6 months ago, when Corinne started asking pointed questions about my insurance coverage and Damien started making jokes about accidents happening, I'd made some adjustments. Moved the irreplaceable items. Created copies. Built redundancies. I'm not a genius. I'm just someone who learned early that the people who are supposed to protect you are sometimes the ones you need protection from. And my siblings, they just confirmed every suspicion I'd spent 3 years hoping was wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, "Your brother and sister called. They said you had them arrested. What is wrong with you? Call me immediately." I didn't call. Instead, I opened my laptop, the one I'd taken to the client meeting, the one that had every project file backed up in triplicate. I pulled up the folder marked Damien and Corinne and started reviewing. 3 years of documentation. Screenshots of conversations where they asked to borrow money and never paid it back. Recordings of family dinners where they made jokes about my work being just a hobby. Text messages where they tried to convince our parents that I was being selfish with my success, that I should be helping family more. Emails where Corinne asked me to produce her friend's demo for free, and when I explained I couldn't work for exposure, she told me I was getting too big for my britches. Every boundary I'd set, they'd pushed. Every time I'd said no, they'd gone to our parents and painted me as the villain. And our parents, bless them, they loved the idea of a close-knit family more than they loved the reality of who their children actually were. So they'd enable. Mediate. Smooth things over. Tasha, they didn't mean it like that. Tasha, just help them out this once. Tasha, why do you have to make everything so difficult? I'd stopped making it difficult. I'd started making it documented. And now, sitting in my destroyed studio at 1 a.m, I pulled up a document I'd started drafting 6 months ago. A legal document. A cease and desist letter template. A restraining order application. An itemized list of every dollar they'd ever taken from me under false pretenses. Every favor I'd done that was never reciprocated. Every time they'd used my resources, my connections, my reputation to advance themselves while simultaneously tearing me down. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Crystal clear. They'd given me exactly what I needed, undeniable proof that this relationship was not salvageable. That I didn't owe them my energy, my money, or my forgiveness. That cutting them off wasn't cruelty, it was survival. The insurance adjuster arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. Professional, efficient, slightly horrified at the extent of the damage. We walked through the studio together, him taking photos, me providing documentation. Serial numbers, purchase receipts, installation invoices. Everything organized in a binder I'd prepared years ago, updated quarterly, kept in a fireproof safe. By the time the police left with my siblings in tow, it was past midnight. Mrs. Chen had made me tea I didn't drink. The insurance adjuster was scheduled for the morning. And I was standing in the ruins of my studio, finally alone, finally able to breathe. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd created 3 years ago. The one labeled, just in case. Because you see, I'd known this was coming. Maybe not the exact destruction, maybe not the baseball bat and the filming, but I'd known that one day, my siblings would try to tear me down. They'd been circling for years, making little comments, planting little seeds of resentment. Testing boundaries. Seeing how far they could push. I'd been preparing for them. The studio they destroyed? It was insured. Heavily insured. More than its actual value, if I'm being honest. I documented every purchase, every receipt, every installation. The equipment they smashed was already a generation old. I'd been planning to upgrade anyway. In fact, I'd already purchased most of the new equipment. It was sitting in a climate-controlled storage unit across town, waiting for the renovation I'd planned to start next month. The studio they destroyed was a decoy. Not intentionally, not at first. But when I started noticing their behavior shifting 6 months ago, when Corinne started asking pointed questions about my insurance coverage and Damien started making jokes about accidents happening, I'd made some adjustments. Moved the irreplaceable items. Created copies. Built redundancies. I'm not a genius. I'm just someone who learned early that the people who are supposed to protect you are sometimes the ones you need protection from. And my siblings, they just confirmed every suspicion I'd spent 3 years hoping was wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, "Your brother and sister called. They said you had them arrested. What is wrong with you? Call me immediately." I didn't call. Instead, I opened my laptop, the one I'd taken to the client meeting, the one that had every project file backed up in triplicate. I pulled up the folder marked Damien and Corinne and started reviewing. 3 years of documentation. Screenshots of conversations where they asked to borrow money and never paid it back. Recordings of family dinners where they made jokes about my work being just a hobby. Text messages where they tried to convince our parents that I was being selfish with my success, that I should be helping family more. Emails where Corinne asked me to produce her friend's demo for free, and when I explained I couldn't work for exposure, she told me I was getting too big for my britches. Every boundary I'd set, they'd pushed. Every time I'd said no, they'd gone to our parents and painted me as the villain. And our parents, bless them, they loved the idea of a close-knit family more than they loved the reality of who their children actually were. So they'd enable. Mediate. Smooth things over. Tasha, they didn't mean it like that. Tasha, just help them out this once. Tasha, why do you have to make everything so difficult? I'd stopped making it difficult. I'd started making it documented. And now, sitting in my destroyed studio at 1 a.m, I pulled up a document I'd started drafting 6 months ago. A legal document. A cease and desist letter template. A restraining order application. An itemized list of every dollar they'd ever taken from me under false pretenses. Every favor I'd done that was never reciprocated. Every time they'd used my resources, my connections, my reputation to advance themselves while simultaneously tearing me down. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Crystal clear. They'd given me exactly what I needed, undeniable proof that this relationship was not salvageable. That I didn't owe them my energy, my money, or my forgiveness. That cutting them off wasn't cruelty, it was survival. The insurance adjuster arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. Professional, efficient, slightly horrified at the extent of the damage. We walked through the studio together, him taking photos, me providing documentation. Serial numbers, purchase receipts, installation invoices. Everything organized in a binder I'd prepared years ago, updated quarterly, kept in a fireproof safe. This is the most thorough documentation I've seen in 15 years of doing this job, he said, genuinely impressed. Most people can't even find their receipts. I like to be prepared, I said simply. Well, based on what I'm seeing here, your policy should cover the full replacement value plus additional damages for loss of income during repairs. We're looking at approximately $180,000. I nodded. Not surprised, because I'd calculated the exact payout when I'd upgraded my policy 8 months ago. The studio they destroyed was worth $120,000. But the policy also covered business interruption, client contract cancellations, and emotional distress. I'd been paying higher premiums specifically for this level of coverage. Because I'd known. Maybe not the exact scenario, but I'd known. How long until the claim processes? I asked. Given the police report and video evidence, probably 2 weeks. We'll expedite it given the circumstances. Perfect. And just to confirm, the policy covers setting up a temporary workspace while repairs are underway? Up to $15,000 for temporary relocation and equipment rental. I smiled. A real smile, the first one since yesterday. Excellent. After he left, I called the storage unit. Hi, this is Natasha Reeves. I need to arrange delivery of my equipment to a new location. Yes, the whole unit. Tomorrow would be perfect. Then I called Marcus, my best friend and the only person in my family by choice rather than blood. He answered on the second ring. I heard, he said immediately. Are you okay? I'm better than okay, I said, surprising myself with how true it was. I need your help with something. Remember that commercial space in Fremont you said was available? The one with the exposed brick and the 20-foot ceilings? That's the one. Is it still on the market? Last I checked. Why? Because I'm about to build the studio I actually want. Not the one I could afford. Not the one I pieced together. The real one. And I'm going to do it with insurance money from the studio my siblings destroyed. There was a pause. Then Marcus started laughing. You absolute mastermind. You had this planned, didn't you? Not planned. Prepared. There's a difference. Natasha, I've known you for 10 years, and I've never been more convinced that you're the smartest person I've ever met. When do we start? Today. I'll text you the address. And Marcus? Bring a bottle of something expensive. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? Freedom. I hung up and looked around the destroyed studio one more time. Damien and Corinne thought they'd broken me. Thought they'd finally brought me down to their level, made me feel as small as they'd always felt in comparison. They thought destroying this place would destroy me. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Because I wasn't the girl who'd spent 6 years scrimping and saving anymore. I was the woman who'd learned that the most valuable thing you can build isn't a studio or a career or a reputation. It's a fortress. And I'd been quietly constructing mine for years, brick by brick, document by document, backup plan by backup plan. The studio they destroyed? It was already a ghost. The life they tried to ruin? It was already 3 steps ahead of them. And the sister they thought they knew, the one who'd always accommodated, always compromised, always chose peace over justice. She'd been preparing for war. She just never told them. Because the thing about being underestimated is that it's the best cover you could ever ask for. Let them think they'd won. Let them think they'd finally gotten their revenge for all the perceived slights, all the imagined superiority, all the projected inadequacies. Because while they were celebrating their destructive little temper tantrum, I was building something they could never touch, never reach, never comprehend. I'd already forgiven myself for what I was about to do to them. Because this wasn't revenge. This was removal. And there's a difference. Revenge is emotional, messy, mutual destruction. Removal is surgical. It's cutting out the parts of your life that have become infected before they poison everything else. My siblings had just performed their own autopsy. They'd shown me exactly where to make the incisions. And I, always the prepared one, had been sharpening my scalpels for years. The next morning, I woke up in a hotel room. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd spent the night away from the house, away from the memories, away from the ghost of what that studio represented. I ordered room service, ate slowly, and opened my laptop to a flood of messages. My parents, of course, were beside themselves. How could you have your own brother and sister arrested? What will the family think? This is so embarrassing. Not once did they ask if I was okay. Not once did they acknowledge the destruction. Just concern about appearances, about how this would look, about their precious family image. I'd expected nothing less. And I'd prepared for that too. Because the thing about enabling parents is that they're predictable. They'll always choose the path of least resistance, which means they'll always pressure the responsible one to forgive, to accommodate, to make it easier for everyone else. They won't do the hard work of holding the actual wrongdoers accountable. They'll just expect you to absorb the damage and move on. Not this time. This time, I had something I'd never had before: leverage. And documentation. And a plan so thorough, so meticulously constructed, that even I was a little impressed with past me for having the foresight to set all this in motion. I opened the folder again. The one I'd been building for 3 years. And I started making calls. First to my attorney, Nathan Mercer, who I'd been paying a retainer to for exactly this kind of situation. Nathan, it's Natasha. It happened. Everything we discussed. The siblings. Destroyed the studio. $120,000 in damage. All caught on video. They're being charged. And you have the documentation? Every piece. Receipts, insurance records, security footage, social media posts. Even a video of my sister literally filming the destruction and mocking me. I could hear him typing. Natasha, I have to say, when you first came to me 3 years ago talking about protecting yourself from family members, I thought you were being paranoid. And now? Now I think you should teach a masterclass in asset protection and crisis preparation. Send me everything. I'll start drafting the civil suit this afternoon. We're going for full damages, emotional distress, and a permanent restraining order. And the business implications? Your contracts are protected. You have force majeure clauses, backup plans, and alternative studio arrangements. Your clients won't be impacted. In fact, once they hear about this, you'll probably get a wave of support. Industry people love a survival story. I don't want publicity, Nathan. I know. But you might not have a choice. Your sister posted the video publicly. It's already got over 50,000 views. My stomach dropped. What? Check her Instagram. Actually, don't. I'll handle it. We're issuing takedown notices for unauthorized use of your image and defamation. But Natasha, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get messy before it gets better. I can handle messy. I know you can. That's why we're going to win. After I hung up with Nathan, I finally looked at Kern's Instagram. The video was there, pinned to the top of her profile. And the comments were not what I expected. I'd braced myself for mockery, for people taking her side, for being painted as the villain in her narrative. Instead, this is literally criminal. You're admitting to destroying someone's property. Girl, you and your brother are about to get sued into oblivion. The fact that you filmed this and posted it, the stupidity is astounding. That's not karma, that's called being a terrible person. Hope the clout was worth the criminal charges. As a music producer, this made me physically ill. That equipment is expensive. You just destroyed someone's career for, what? Likes? Someone had even identified some of the equipment in the background, calculating the approximate value. That's easily $150,000 plus in gear. This isn't a prank. This is a felony. Corinne had started replying to comments at first, defending herself, claiming I had it coming, that I was a terrible sister who abandoned her family. But the tide wasn't turning her way. People were screenshotting her responses, her previous posts, building a pattern of behavior. Someone found old posts where she'd bragged about using my studio without permission, tagged me in mocking memes about uptight siblings, posted pictures of herself in my workspace with captions like, borrowing Big Sis's toys since she's too busy being important. The internet, for once, was on my side. And Corinne, who'd posted the video thinking she'd get sympathy, thinking people would side with her, putting me in my place, was getting absolutely destroyed in the comments. She'd finally gotten the attention she always craved. Just not the kind she wanted. I closed the app. I didn't need to watch my sister implode in real time. That would happen with or without my observation. Instead, I called Marcus back. Studio space? Signed the lease this morning. 6 months, with option to buy. Owner gave us a deal when I explained the situation. Turns out his daughter is a musician. He was not pleased to hear what your siblings did. Marcus, you're a miracle worker. I'm really not. I just know how to talk to people. Unlike some siblings I could mention. How soon can we get equipment moved in? Storage unit is delivering tomorrow. I've got a crew coming to help set up. And Natasha? I called in some favors. You know Jake from Sonic Resonance? The acoustics engineer? He heard what happened. He's donating his services. Pro bono. Said any engineer worth their salt would want to help rebuild what your siblings destroyed. We're getting professional acoustic treatment, top-tier soundproofing, the works. I felt my throat tighten. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that while my blood family had tried to tear me down, my chosen family was building me back up. Stronger. Better. Unbreakable. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just promise me one thing. What? Promise me you'll never let those people back into your life. Not your siblings. Not your parents if they take their side. You've given them enough. You've paid enough. You've sacrificed enough. Now it's time to build something they can never touch. I promise. Good. Now get over here. We have a studio to build. And Natasha? Make it the best damn production space in Seattle. Make it so good that every artist in the city wants to record there. Make it so successful that when people Google your name, the first thing they see isn't the destruction, it's the empire you built from the ashes. I arrived at the Fremont location an hour later. Marcus was right, it was perfect. Exposed brick walls, industrial windows, 20-foot ceilings with original wooden beams. The space was easily 3 times the size of my home studio. It had room for a proper control room, a live room, even a lounge area for clients. Jake was already there, measuring walls, taking notes. He looked up when I walked in. Natasha Reeves. Heard a lot about you. Worked on 3 albums you mixed. Incredible work. Thank you. And thank you for this. I can't tell you how much. He held up a hand. Stop. This industry is small. We take care of our own. What your siblings did? That's not just a personal attack. That's an attack on art. On creation. On everything we do. So we're not just rebuilding your studio. We're making a statement. Over the next 4 hours, we planned. Jake sketched out acoustic treatment plans. Marcus coordinated equipment delivery. I contacted every client I had scheduled, explained the situation professionally and briefly, and offered them alternative solutions. Not a single one canceled. 3 of them asked if there was anything they could do to help. One of them, a semi-famous indie artist named Sophie Chin, posted about it on her Twitter. Supporting at Natasha Reeves Audio through this difficult time. If you need a producer who's professional, talented, and apparently unstoppable even when her own family tries to sabotage her, hit her up. #music community #support artists. It got retweeted 12,000 times. My email inbox started flooding with inquiries, support messages, even donation offers which I politely declined. The narrative was shifting. What Corinne had meant to be my public humiliation was becoming something else entirely. Proof of my resilience, documentation of my siblings' cruelty, and inadvertently, the best marketing I'd never asked for. By the end of the day, we had a timeline. 2 weeks to complete the acoustic treatment. Another week for equipment setup and calibration. 3 weeks total, and I'd have a workspace that was better than what I'd lost. The insurance payout would cover most of it. The rest I'd cover from my savings, the real savings, the accounts my siblings never knew existed. Because here's what they never understood about me, I was never bad with money. I just chose to invest it in ways they couldn't see. In businesses they didn't know about. In opportunities they couldn't track. While they thought I was barely scraping by, I'd been building multiple revenue streams, diversifying, preparing for exactly this kind of disaster. The destroyed studio? It was a setback. But I'd built my life to withstand setbacks. I'd built redundancy into everything. Multiple backup plans. Alternative paths. Escape routes. Because when you grow up in a family that uses love as leverage, you learn very quickly that the only person you can truly depend on is yourself. That night, back in my hotel room, I finally let myself feel it. All of it. The betrayal, the shock, the anger, the grief. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried for the first time since it happened. Not because they'd broken me, but because they'd confirmed what I'd been trying not to believe for years, that the family I'd been born into would never love me the way I deserved to be loved. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom, it clarifies everything. It burns away all the illusions, all the hope, all the maybes and possiblies and if I just tried harders. It leaves you with truth. Raw, uncomfortable, liberating truth. And my truth was this: I was better off without them. All of them. My siblings who destroyed my work. My parents who'd enabled them. The entire family system that had taught me my value was in what I could provide, never in who I was. I was done. Not in a dramatic, emotional way. In a quiet, permanent way. The way you close a book you've finished reading. The way you delete an app you no longer need. The way you move forward without looking back, not because you're running away, but because there's nothing left behind you worth turning around for. My phone buzzed one more time. My mother, Natasha Marie Reeves, you call me right now. Your siblings are devastated. They could go to jail. How can you be so heartless? I read the message twice. Then I blocked the number. Because that was my answer.